problem in Washington is they don't follow the Constitution. And we need people that will follow the Constitution, I believe, which I think you remember last fall, Republicans took over Congress. You remember that, the House. And it was a good proposal. They said we should be more to the Constitution. So each time you introduce legislation now, you have to write down what part of the Constitution you're getting authority from. And I think this is very, very good. But it doesn't solve the problem, because those who want bigger government, they just write down the general welfare clause, the interstate commerce clause, and the necessary proper clause. So it's the way they interpret it or want to interpret it, the way they have been taught. That you don't want an overly rigid document. You want one that's flexible and adaptable to modern times. And they have no sense of remorse about not obeying their oath of office. It's just that they have a different understanding. So that is what's going to be required, is the understanding of the people, so they only send people to Washington that have the knowledge about the Constitution, that we can reverse the situation. But today we face a continuing financial crisis. The bubble burst, and we sort of put that aside, at least for the moment, but it really isn't solved. It's much worse than it has been. We got into that mess because of decades of spending too much and borrowing too much and taxing too much and regulating too much and printing too much paper money. That's what got us there. So we finally have the predictable collapse of the financial bubble. So what did Congress do, and what did the Federal Reserve do? They started spending more money, they started borrowing more money, they started printing more money, they started more regulations, and they think that's the solution, to the mess that we have. But all it did was transfer, bad debt from one group who were making out like bandits during the inflationary period, because there were people working with these derivatives and all the gambling going on, and they were doing quite well. But it was all, a speculative bin based on the inflationary climate that was produced by the Federal Reserve. So that finally comes, and then they scare everybody, scare candidates to run back and vote for the bailout because the financial crisis is here and you'll have a depression if you don't, take care of it. But what they did was they took all those bad assets and transferred them to us, the people now own them, whether they're in the Federal Reserve or whether the Treasury buys them or whatever. So the people who made out so well got the rewards, and the people who suffer the most are the ones who will suffer the consequences that are yet to come. Because we don't have real wealth. In capitalism, you're supposed to work hard, produce, use what you need to live, save, and reinvest, or let somebody else reinvest your money, have savings. But we don't do that. We just live on borrowed money. Our country does it, individuals do it, corporations do it, and that eventually leads to this problem that we have today, and nobody's quite willing to say, we have to turn this off, we have to turn it around, because if we don't, we're going to get ourselves into a big mess. Well, the big mess is here. It's been propped up. The proper thing to do under an understanding of free market economics, if government gets out of control, spends too much, and they create an inflationary bubble, and the market says too much, you have to quit because you're overextended, the best thing to do is allow the liquidation of the debt. Get rid liquidation of debt and get rid of all the malinvestment, the bad mistakes. But politicians can't do that. They're incapable of doing that, at least since 1921. They haven't been able to do it. So they have to say, I'm the politician and I know what's best, and this is what we have to do. So they don't permit the market to liquidate. We didn't allow it to happen in the 30s. Japan hasn't allowed it to happen for 20 years now, and they're in the doldrums. So here it is. We're doing it once again. We're not allowing the liquidation to occur. Under those circumstances, the crisis could be over in a year or two, and it's been over by now if that would have been permitted. So we now have another problem because this whole system, not only domestically, not only for the United States, but for around the world, anybody who needed bailing out, they came to us because the dollar was still seen as the gold, in a fictitious sense. Because we issued the reserve currency of the world, 75% of the reserves of the world are held in paper dollars, and when countries got into trouble or businesses got in trouble, banks got in trouble, it was always resorting to printing more money. And now what we face, is a dollar crisis. And this week was a very important week because Standard & Poor rating system said that the dollar's going to be rated down, and this is very serious. Standard & Poor and the other bond rating agencies prior to the bust in 2008 were completely wrong on all their predictions. They always said things were okay, things weren't bad, these bonds were okay. So they're always more optimistic. So this warning, I think, is very, very reserved, and that if they were telling the truth, they would let you know that the dollar is going to be going through a lot more trouble. The only true measurement, or the best measurement of a currency historically for 5,000 years, has been the relationship of the currency to gold. Now, that wasn't something I invented. Nobody invented it. The market invented it. And even though for decades now we have been in denial, they know that's old-fashioned stuff. We don't have to do that. We know how to print money and take care of the value of money. But now, our dollar at one time, not in the 1920s, before the Depression, a dollar was worth 1/20th of an ounce of gold. That's what the backing is. Today it's 1/1500th of an ounce of gold, and going up in an exponential fashion. This should be a sharp warning of what's happening. But people like Greenspan and Bernanke, when I would bring this up, they say, no, it's okay. We don't really buy into that anymore. And they deceive themselves. They actually believe that just printing money can take care of it. Bernanke, if you read his material, he says the only reason we were in the Depression and couldn't get out of the Depression, we didn't print the money fast enough. And he, of course, assured us that he was ever in charge, before he was the chairman, he said, if it was ever necessary, he says, I will make sure, even if it's necessary, I will drop paper money out of helicopters in order to make sure that we don't have a recession. Or we'll get you out of recession, but it can't work. It's not working right now, and therefore we are going to be pushed into a monetary crisis. Now, I have a very strong opinion that most of you know about the Federal Reserve. My position is we want to get rid of the Federal Reserve. In the meantime, the least we can do is audit the Federal Reserve to find out what they've been up to. So many of you, last term, congressional term, we did get, the bill passed out of the House to audit the Federal Reserve. It was watered down by the time it went through the Senate. But we did get a partial audit, and there were some court rulings that allowed us now to look at more of what's going on at the Fed. And I imagine most of you saw that story out recently that one of the two individuals that got some bailout money from the Federal Reserve, two wives of some executives, $220 million. And it just happened that shortly after they got that loan to bail out their business, which was a brand new business, they bought a $13.5 million new house. And this is the kind of thing that goes on. Now, most people can understand $200 million loan and a $13.5 million house. It's hard to comprehend the truth. It's so massive. It even blows my mind when I think about it. They passed out $3.3 trillion, to their buddies. And there were total areas. We don't have to tell you anything. We don't have to. They can print more money and pass it out, bail out their friends, and think they can do it in complete secret, more money than even the Congress can do. And that's why they fear a true audit, because we will find out what they have been doing, and they know that we're in the midst of a crisis.